Lindsay, Lagoon just sounds too noisy.
I'm going to put myself on mute, but I'm here and I'm listening, okay?
Okay. Okay, so team, any ideas on exactly what you want to go down? So Lindsay and I we're the first two in our paper this week. And so we kind of went through the first section. I pulled out there's Chase. Hey, Chase.
Maybe have Lindsay turn off her video.
Hey, Lindsay, can you turn off your video? There you go. Hey, Chase, how are you?
Doing good.
So,
how are you guys?
Good. So since you're the editor, do you want to control the meeting or do you want me to keep going?
Whatever's fine with me.
Okay, why don't you take over?
Okay. So I don't know what you guys just talked about, but so how we've set up the project is that people are going to have their own sections that they're going to accomplish, and we've noticed that with this project in particular, it's very it's structured in a way where the first one has to be done first, and then the second one can build off of that. And so we have Carrie and Lindsay, who have started doing the first 3 sections, I believe, and Leslie should have the next one. So that's where we're at with the assignments and where we're at so far for the week. Let's see. And I didn't see your note, Brother Haderlie, about scheduling like a video call. That was Sam in the group that suggested that we did this. So is the purpose of this call to ask for advice on how to complete this project?
It's more of a note in there, this part of the semester. If you're not sure you're going in the right direction, or you got some questions, or things aren't going well, this is not a required meeting, so I just kind of throw that out. I've met with another group briefly last week, so it's just to go over the rubric. If you have any questions, I can make comments, make sure you're in the right direction doing things, and that's kind of what it's all about.
Thank you. Yeah, so Carrie, if you want to, you can kind of, give a summary of what you have and what direction we're kind of going into, since you guys already have your sections.
Okay. So what we did was 10.1 asked us to get, to pull up the entry modes that we would not use. And so we went through it and we chose, I gotta go back to my notes. We chose that we would not import the finished good, because we felt like going to Russia, that would be kind of not in our best interest. Plus, we wanted to make the jacket be Russian made for Russian people, so that they have pride in wearing it, and so on and so forth. So we chose not to do that. We also chose not to go with a franchise or license, because we don't want to lose our proprietary, the great heating pads that we've got in them to keep them warm. So we chose not to go down that line. And then we chose not to do a wholly owned subsidiary. Again, just because we think it would be hard to do business in Russia, and that's putting it, just kind of simple. So then in 10.2, Lindsay wrote about doing a contract manufacturer within the host country. We were able to find one online called Red Fox that does outdoor clothing apparel. And so we thought it would be great to contract with them and have them help us produce it right inside of Russia. And then the other one is the joint venture, and we found another company by the name of FashionNet. And what they do is kind of help companies get set up right in Russia with all the right, abiding by the rules, the taxes, and all that kind of stuff. And then we wrote our conclusion on why we chose those two. My biggest question on the part that we've done is today I was out there playing on the assignment with the tariffs and all that kind of stuff, and I was able to find the HC code or whatever it's called for men's coats and women's coats. But I just don't understand how to figure out what the tariffs really are on it. And I don't know if that's something that we need to call out, or if it's something that in our section, or if it's something that somebody else is doing. So maybe you could give us some help in that respect on knowing exactly, if we're doing business with Russia, what are the big pitfalls and how do we really find those? Other than the ones we found along the way.
Yeah, I think getting an estimate of what the tariffs might be or the import duties is okay. You don't have to get real specific on the harmonized code and on the product, just so you kind of say this is the closest we could get and this is what the normal entry tariffs might be. What was the last part of the question?
Whether we even had to include that, or, I think you just answered it by saying as long as we have an estimate, kind of know what it is.
You still talking about section 10?
Yep.
You can just, I don't think that's really part of it, is it? Where did you see, I guess justify your position why you did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just briefly mentioned what you've discovered. You don't have to go into too much detail.
Okay. Okay, so Sam and Chase, I think our section is done with that.
It sounded like the logic flowed, and you made some good choices, so it sounded good.
Okay. Does somebody want to ask about their rubric part?
On section 11, where it talks about risk, just logically, your VP is going to, if we're going to go this route, what are some things we need to watch out for and some downsides, and just talk about that in some detail.
Okay.
Okay. And then for that section, it's kind of hard for me to gauge like the length that we want to go for each section, because I know that's been an issue for us in the past. Like how many paragraphs are we talking for each risk? Just like 2, or is that too much?
Which section are we talking about, 11 or 12?
11.
Well, that's worth 5 points. So 3 medium-sized paragraphs, type of 3 or 4 for 5 points would be typical.
Okay.
It's more important that be specific and concise about and discuss risks in a logical fashion, and how you would mitigate those risks, what we should do. And a lot of the answer to that is consulting with someone who's good in that field, or if it's an accountant, if it's a customs broker, if it's this, if it's that, they can help mitigate those risks and have good knowledge. So that's kind of, I think that answers your question. Does it?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
I had a question. For 12.2, it says that that you should identify the average tariff levied in the host country for the item that you will import. How would I go about like finding out what an average tariff levied in Russia would be?
that's in some of the other lessons. You find out what the harmonized code is. I think we did that in the first part of the semester with most favored nation status, and when you discovered the the highs and the lows as far as import duties, and it tells you there. Use the resource under the materials for the project in week 11, materials assignment, and identify the harmonized tariff code. And that's what Carrie and I were talking about before. That's specifically what she brought up, that you would look on there and see what, as you're reading, I'm looking at the rubric right now,
Okay.
what best represents the items. So you may not find something exactly specific to yours because yours has got the heating in it, but find a harmonized code for the type of jacket you have. And what are you importing? Are you importing the heating unit, or what are you importing and assembling?
I think it's the heating unit.
So you have a contract manufacturer probably in Russia that you'll supply all of the, or work out a deal for all the component parts, and then you'll import something, probably the heating unit that they'll install in the jacket.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So you would either find the harmonized code. Well, what you're importing, I don't know, I guess you're going to get all your materials and zippers and everything in Russia. So you need to find a harmonized code for that heating unit or something close to it, and just say, this is the closest we could get, and this is what the tariffs on those products usually represent, or the average tariffs, something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. That
It
helps.
looks like you can use the most favored nation status duties too if you can't find anything under the harmonized code.
Yeah, and Chase, you could go back. I remember when we did that paper that we had that piece, and she found a whole section that she quoted from, and it came up in a whole table. So that quote or that source is probably in our paper where we talked about most favored nation. So you could just click on that and find it.
Okay.
I also have a question. So I have section 12.3, and so it says identify and discuss at least 3 sourcing companies. So is that the same? Above we have 2 mentioned, I believe, like Red Fox and another. Are like those the same that they want me to talk about?
No, those would be, if I understand it correctly, those were contract manufacturers or people inside inside Russia that can help you manufacture or put together your product. What you're going to identify in 12.3 is the component part in 12.2, which is, I assume, the electrical unit or the heating unit for the coat. And so you're importing that. And so where are you going to get that from? So you need to identify 3 sources that could manufacture that for you and sell it to you and ship it to you into Russia.
Oh, okay, so manufacture the heating units?
Right.
Okay. And then those would probably be companies in the US that would provide it for us, and then we could import it into Russia.
I wouldn't say it would be necessarily the US. You would find those sources. In real world, you try to find out the best source for the price and shipping and all of those things you look at. Of course, you can't do all that here, but you need to find places, and I wouldn't think shipping from the United States with the tenuous relationship we have with Russia, if that would be the best choice or not. It could be, but I don't know where else in the world can make that for you. That's what you'd need to research and find and suggest 3, and then I think it asks you to choose the best one you think based on your parameters.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's 12.4. Recommend the best option.
Okay.
These are suppliers for whatever you're importing.
Okay.
So could he also use, one of the things that we ran across when we were doing our research for people we could use to contract manufacture, we ran across a company that is in Russia that does fur. And on the women's jackets, we were thinking about lining the hood with fur. Could you use that as a source, even though it's in Russia?
No, not for this one. I understand what you're saying, but the rubric specifically says for the items you will be importing.
Okay.
You won't be importing the fur. What they're basically trying to get you to do is see in real life when you're trying to get a product and have it imported, you want to go out and find the best source for that. Is that in this country or that country, and what are the shipping charges, and how much is it going to cost to manufacture, landed duties paid. So they're wanting you to go through that and sourcing more than one source, or getting the product or bids from more than one source. And so that's the purpose of that exercise or that part of the rubric.
Okay, and does it make sense that he would look at countries that have free trade agreements with Russia?
That would be one of the components, yes.
Okay.
Because that would lend itself to what it's going to cost you.
So Sam, that's in our paper also when we talked about most valued nation and tariffs and all that. There was a table that I put in there that was countries that Russia has free trade agreements with.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Melissa, you're up.
I think 12.4 is pretty straightforward for me, just based off of everything else. I remember in your video on 12.5 to just make sure that it's very step-by-step correct on how that whole logistics plan goes.
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to identify companies or just the process, or I'm looking at it and I don't see anything like specifically these people. Oh, identification of carriers. Okay.
Yeah, don't go overboard. Sometimes you can't get good information or what you want, but the best way to explain it is, I mean, this is one of my expertise or my experiences is getting things from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important. So let's say you're having your imported item, the heater manufactured, let's say in Denmark or in China or in Vietnam. Okay, when it's manufactured, how is it going to get to you? To your warehouse, to your contract manufacturer in Russia? Well, it needs to be boxed. It needs to be, it needs to be picked up, put on a container, taken to the port, put on an ocean freight. It's going to take X amount of days, and that's where you need to identify carriers that sail between your source to a port in Russia, or it could go by train in Russia. If you're in the European Union, you could just truck it, but then it has to get there and somehow get to your warehouse or your contract manufacturer and unloaded. And who and how are you going to do that in some detail?
Okay.
So what I have problems with it is that, they make assumptions and it's in the port, but it never gets out of the port. They don't talk about, getting a trucking company to pick up the container and deliver it to you, or arranging for a custom broker to do that. So that's really what it is logically go through, how do I really get it from point A to point B?
Okay.
And try to include estimated costs and travel times. Or that last sentence there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, it says be sure.
not cry. Okay, I think that was really the only point of clarification that I needed.
Okay. Okay, that goes through the rubric. Any other questions on that?
I do thought of one. So the suggested length is 4 to 8 pages, and currently with just the first, so section 10, we're at 4 pages already. If we go over 8 pages, are we going to be dock points for that?
No, not really, unless you just get some sections just go on and they're not concise.
Okay.
Page, of course, the pages don't include the cover page or any of the reference pages or any charts and graphs, so it's written text.
Okay.
So 8 pages should be sufficient, but don't worry too much about it. Just don't go crazy.
Okay. Great.
I have a quick question. So in my section, it mentions that these include landed costs, and then it says consider transportation and tariffs as well as unit cost. Are you looking for specific numbers there? And like
Which rubric number are you looking at?
12.3 at towards the end.
I would just have a conversation. Basically, what that's saying at the end is, what makes this supplier or the sourcing company better than the other one? Sometimes I get some fluff and just kind of not any. It doesn't really tell me much. If I'm your vice president, I would want you to say, well, in this supplier, we saw that, their customer ratings were this or they were that. Their quality is this. Their time of delivery, how long have they been in business, and so on and so forth. Anything you can find out about the company, that's what you'd use to evaluate to see which one may be better than the other one.
Okay, but when it talks about tariffs, I don't really need to get
No.
specific numbers.
No. Well, I would say something as easy as this. So Carrie started to mention this about another section. If you're looking at a supplier in Vietnam, one in Uzbekistan, and one in China, and there was a free trade agreement with Uzbekistan, I believe there is, that will bring in things much cheaper, and they're still have a good quality of product. Then you mentioned that Uzbekistan would be cheaper for us to bring in, and that's the reason you chose. That's one of the reasons why you chose them. They were better than Vietnam and China, and the transportation costs are less. Something like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Just basically or briefly include some of those things you may find.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Speak now or forever hold your peace. So when do you leave for the mission field?
We're all in the mission field, aren't we?
Well, yes, but specifically.
We leave at the end of July to drive out and go to the MTC, then back to Texas.
What MTC? The one in Utah?
Provo, yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And then you'll be in Houston?
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
Nice. I'm from Dallas, so
Are you?
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We get to go to the Dallas Temple without having to ask permission.
Nice.
We'll be in the mission office. It's right there, not too far from Dallas, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great.
Should be fun.
So are you getting a little ready to be done with class? And move on to the next thing?
Isn't everybody getting tired of classes in the summertime?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can tell. I was going to send an email out. People are starting to kind of, they're starting to kind of, peter out a little bit on some things. But right now, half the class has an A. And the other ones that are lower, it's because they're not doing assignments. I was going to are there any other questions about the course or anything?
Yeah, I have one. So I see that the final is optional.
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah.
What we do is that the points in the final, I think, are 100 points. If you're like a D plus or a C minus, taking the final and doing well will raise your grade, maybe 1 grade or a third of a grade. If you already have an A and everything, or it's really hard to move your grade. If you're on the borderline, you can do that. If you have a question about your grade, let's say you're at 92.89% and 93 is an A, I'll give you an A when it's that close. So talk to me about that. But if people want to, what happens sometimes, sometimes you're a little bit further away from getting bumped up. And somebody told me that Brother Haderlie, if you go ahead and try to take the exam and so on, he a lot of times has mercy and will move you up to the next grade level for your efforts.
Well, that's good to know.
So does it negatively affect you? So if I completely bomb it, is it going to take me from a C plus to a D?
No, there's 2 or 3 different places where it's listed. But
Okay.
no, we take the negative out of that. If you don't do well, you get the same grade you got right now.
Okay, that's fine. I
And if
haven't
you don't
read
take
ahead, I'm
it, you
sorry.
get the same grade.
What's that?
And if you don't take it, you get the same grade you have now.
Correct. You just stay where you're at, and I excuse the final, and you keep the same grade. So if I had an A, I wouldn't worry about it.
Exactly.
And if I had a 85%, I wouldn't worry about it, because there's no way you can go up to 87%. It's just math. Do a grade calculator or whatever. It's not mathematically possible. We feel like the assignments, and especially the business plan and papers, is what most of the class is about. I think we had to have a final exam just to make people happy in the administration years ago. It helps a few people, but not too many take it.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Good question. People ask me questions. I give away little secrets sometimes.
Well, we should have been meeting with you weekly then.
There you go. I offer, well, all you Westerners are 2 hours ahead of me. You want me to meet 11 o'clock at night. Now, there's this one group that always invites me, but they meet at 9:30 Mountain, and I'm not going to stay up till 11:30 most nights.
Yeah, that'd be rough. Well, we appreciate you coming to our call today.
Well, thanks for the invite, and best wishes to you all, and we'll finish up the semester fast, and then you've got 6 weeks off.
Or you're done.
Or you're graduating.
Some of us are done.
Yeah, graduation's always great.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for meeting with us.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey, Sam.
Yeah.
So some of the information that you need for yours is, and maybe Melissa's too, is in this week's. You know how this week it had the course material kind of broken in 2 parts, the first part, and then you took the quiz, and then there's some more stuff down below that it says this doesn't go to the quiz, but that's where you can go out and find manufacturers or countries and and I couldn't figure it out today, but you can also go out there, and you're probably better at this than I am, but you can find the product, and then you can punch in where it's coming from and where it's going, and it should tell you the best route or the best way to go.
Okay.
So if you just kind of walk through that piece of it, and again, you know, it was kind of difficult for me. I couldn't figure it out completely. But if you go through that, you'll probably get an idea of what he was talking about as far as, you know, what's the best way, like trucking or shipping it or whatever.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
I'll see what I can get.
And
Was that
then
websites or was that downloadable?
there's websites.
Okay.
And then the other thing I wanted to say was for the HC code, I went out and I didn't do batteries. I did the coat themselves. But since we're not importing those, you're going to have to look for batteries for an HC code, and that's pretty simple to do. So if you run
Is that
into
me or is that Melissa?
I think it's Chase.
I think it's me.
Okay.
So if you run into a problem, Chase, just send me a quick text, and I can jump on with you and show you what I did to find the code. There's a little video when you first go into the website. It says, watch a demo video here. And if you click on here, he walks through the whole process, and it's a 4-minute video that kind of helps you figure it out.
Cool.
So, and if you need us to shorten ours, if you need Lindsay and I to shorten ours when you guys all get done, let me know, and we'll go in and take some stuff out. I think it's 4 pages because all of the directions are still in there and
Right. Mm-hmm.
all of that. And we can change the font size down a little bit. I don't remember what size it is in there, but it might be a 12 or 13 even.
Oh, okay.
And we can
sometimes the
change
actual font too. Some fonts are bigger than the others at 11 or 12.
Yeah, if we use Times New Roman or whatever when we do the final document, that will make it smaller on the page.
Calibre 10 or Calibre or whatever you say that.
Yeah.
So.
And then, Carrie, can you send us the recording, because then I'll be able to just go back, you know, to my parts where he said stuff, so it's like fresh.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
So it'll take me a minute, you know, to download it. And
Yeah,
then
no worries. I don't need it
I'll
right
send
away.
it to us in email.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well.
Or you could post it in OneDrive and then you don't have to email it out to everyone.
I could do both. So those that like
Microsoft
email, you know, I hate OneDrive.
I know. I'm sorry. I like it better than Google Docs, though.
I agree. Hey, and then Chase, so what's the schedule again? When should each of us be done with our section?
So it'd be great if it could be by Friday evening, and because I would say Thursday, but 4th of July, so another day would be probably easier for y'all. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, if that gives you enough time.
So I don't think Leslie's part's going to matter what she says in hers. So Chase, when are you going to work on yours? Because I think that's the next one that matters.
Yeah, so honestly, I haven't even started the homework that's due tonight for this class, but I'm going to do that, and then I will probably get started on this, or my first section at least.
Okay, and then I'm the next person in line because Melissa, you need my stuff, right, to do yours.
Okay, and I was thinking about the whole order of it during the I think for this section 12.1 and 12.2 deal with like how the imported good or whatever it is, the heater, like how it's like what it is and like how it is going to get into the country and stuff. And from like 12.3, I was wondering if there could be worked at the same, if it could be worked at the same time. And I thought it could when I read this. I don't know what gave me that idea, but if Sam, if you start that and you come into like a hard point where you feel like you don't have enough information because of something from my section, just let me know, I guess.
Okay. Something that I could do is I could have my, like, guaranteed to have my part done Thursday night so that Melissa has a whole day, for hers. And then maybe if you could, like, get done, like, Wednesday night or something. With
Yeah,
yours,
tomorrow night.
in case, yeah.
Sure. That works for me.
Okay.
Do that.
I think, guys, 12.1 and 12.3 could be done at the same time. Because, Sam, we know that we're going to import the heater.
Yeah.
And that's really what 12.1 does, is say, okay, what are we importing?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, your guys' information needs to mesh, but you should both be able to do that. And then Chase, yeah, and then I need 12.2 and 12.3 to start on mine. But I can start on 12.5 without that information. It's really 12.4 that I need to do.
Oh,
Okay.
All of that. So I think 3 of those we can be working on concurrently, and then
Cool.
tying all the details together in 1, 3, and 4 to make sure it just flows.
Okay.
That works.
Yeah.
And Melissa, are you good with with Sam being done on Thursday evening and then you'll have Friday?
The earlier the better, Sam.
Okay.
Friday, a majority of Friday is the funeral. So
Okay.
I think I would be okay later in the evening. But the sooner the better. Even if it's just not completely fleshed out and you have generalities that I can fill in.
Okay. So,
Pros and cons.
and then Chase, the sooner you get done, like, the sooner I can also get that to Melissa, but whenever you can.
Yeah.
I'll start it after I do like the whole case study thing. So
Yeah. Sam, I don't think you need 12.1 because we know we're doing the heaters.
Do I need 12.2?
12.2 talks about tariffs. That's in 12.4. So you don't need anything from 12.1
that's what I was trying to figure out.
to yours.
Okay, so I don't need 12.1 or 12.2.
We've already decided that we're bringing in the heating technology, which is really what Chase fleshes out in 12.1. So if we've already agreed on that, and we know we're importing finished goods, or we're not, this says we'll not be importing the finished heater, just parts of it.
Well, we're importing the heater, but like the finished good would be the entire jacket.
Gotcha.
Right.
So if we know we're doing the heater, Sam, you can just start looking for suppliers that can get us heaters.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, and if you go out, Sam, to that stuff that we are supposed to do this week, you'll be able to say, I want to import a heater, and up pops a bunch of countries. But what you should do is go look at the paper. I don't remember all the countries that there's free trade in.
Yeah.
But you should look at that because I definitely know that Vietnam's one of them, but I don't know, what other ones are there that are free trade. And if you just went to those kind of countries to find the to get the heating element.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, and then I guess, Melissa, I'll try to get it done as soon as I can, so I might even like finish it earlier on Thursday.
Yeah, that's fine. Whenever I can start on 12.5, and then really for me, pros and cons, if you guys have it in there, it's not going to be that hard to write up.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. So yeah, that's good to know that I don't need Chase doing this first. Okay.
Not if we've already made that decision. So.
Okay, awesome.
Chase, I think you'll just have to make sure that all 3 of those parts, since we're working on them concurrently, that they kind of flow and make sure we're all saying the same stuff.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but I think other than that, we should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
you
so-
might notice that when you're doing your last section too, doing the pros and cons, Melissa.
Yeah.
It might
Yeah.
give you some, you might all of a sudden notice that it's called a heating element and a heating pad and a heating whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do some of that too, but it's nice to have just a final
Mm-hmm.
walkthrough to make sure it all works.
Yep.
Okay. And honestly, if you guys have like any suggestions for the editor, just make a comment somewhere. I'll find it.
Yeah.
And also, whenever you're done with your sections or whatever, just let me know, and then I'll know that I can look over it and start the editing process. So,
Sounds good.
yeah,
Awesome.
Okay.
cool.
Cool beans.
Good week, guys.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
too.
you too.